Ladies and gentlemen, the Chiefs 2025 draft is officially in the books, and they found some very talented players this past weekend that could be the future of this team. But if you guys are new to this channel, my name is Michael Darcy, and you are watching the KC Sports Report. Do me a huge favor and hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more daily Chiefs coverage. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this draft class. In the first round, the Chiefs drafted left tackle from Ohio State, Josh Simmons. In the second round, they drafted defensive tackle from Tennessee, Omar Norman-Lott. In the third round, they drafted Louisville edge rusher Ashton Gelati. In the fourth round, they drafted Utah State wide receiver Jalen Royals. In the fifth round, they drafted linebacker from Oregon, Jeffrey Bassa. And in the seventh round, they drafted SMU running back Brashard Smith. So the Chiefs did, in my opinion, a fantastic job in this draft at going after positional value. You got potentially your future left tackle in the first round. We'll talk about that more in a minute. They got a defensive tackle who's going to be, at the very least, a rotational defensive tackle on this team. They got, in the third round, a rotational edge rusher. In the fourth round, they got a wide receiver that has all of the makeup to be a fantastic receiver. I think his comp was actually Rashee Rice. In the fifth round, you got Jeffrey Bassa, a linebacker who could be a developmental linebacker like Leo Chenal. He's got great athletic traits. And in the seventh round, you drafted potentially a future running back option in Brashard Smith, who was actually compared by his coaching staff as Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco was also a seventh round draft pick, and so maybe the Chiefs just drafted his replacement in the seventh round. Now, maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I do think the Chiefs had a pretty good draft, and we'll talk about draft grades later on in this video and also just throughout the week, because we're going to break down each and every single prospect that the Chiefs did draft, talk about some of the UDFA class, because there are so many guys that are going to be able to, fight it out for a roster spot. But if we just want to go ahead and talk about the big one, the Chiefs draft is going to be defined as, did you get a star? Did you get a future star at left tackle in Josh Simmons in the first round? Did Omar Norman-Lott turn out to be like a Chris Jones type of interior pass rusher? Does Jalen Royals end up being Rashee Rice? Does Jeffrey Bassa end up being a stud linebacker that is on this team for the foreseeable future? Or does Brashard Smith end up being the next starting running back that the Chiefs found in the seventh round? I think that you can afford to miss at maybe one of those positions. Like, let's just say that Josh Simmons ends up being a bust. Let's say that patellar tendon doesn't end up healing correctly, and he ends up maybe playing a couple years here, and he's just mediocre at best. Maybe, that happens, but they end up hitting on Jalen Royals. As long as they found a star in this draft, I think that they did a good job. You got to at least get a couple starters, and I think that if we just look at this class, the Chiefs were looking at the future. There are very few players in this class that I think could make a day one impact. And a guy that I actually forgot to mention was the fourth rounder that I forgot to mention, or was he a third rounder? He was our second third round pick in Noah Williams, the cornerback from Cal. He was an absolute ball hawk. I completely forgot to mention him. I got a separate list that I'm going off of, but he is someone that I actually think could probably be a day one contributor. Like, he is going to be a really good cornerback in this system, especially with Dave Merritt kind of coaching him up. And so I feel like if the Chiefs get 2 or 3 starters from this class, it was overall a success. But if we just look at some of the players that could make a day one impact, it's guys like Noah Williams, the cornerback from Cal. I think that Jalen Royals could get a few snaps in year one. But honestly, Brashard Smith is probably going to be the back that, gets a lot of opportunities, because the Chiefs are pretty thin at running back. I know they have Isaiah Pacheco and they have Elijah Mitchell and they brought back Kareem Hunt. But if we're talking about a guy that could be the future, he might be it. He has that explosiveness. I saw a highlight where he was literally mid-traffic pulls out a nasty spin move and just shows off that athleticism. And so I think that the Chiefs are in a really good position where, yeah, they did draft for the future. I'm not trying to make it seem like they didn't, but there's also a couple guys that I think could contribute this year. But also, since the Chiefs were drafting for the future, I think that shows you that they're in a pretty good spot on their current roster. They felt like their roster was pretty good going into the draft. And so, yeah, they did end up picking up, a left tackle, a couple defensive players, and, they got a wide receiver and a running back, but they mainly went defense. And that's because, defensive players have developed really well on this team. And so I do like the way that they were able to draft this year. I think that you got players at the right positions. I understand there's going to be some complaints that the Chiefs didn't get a running back earlier, but Isaiah Pacheco's proof that you can find good talent at that position later on in the draft. Now, Brashard Smith might not be Quinshon Judkins, and he might not be Travion Henderson. Those guys weren't available when the Chiefs were picking. So the Chiefs kind of had to deal with, the board falling the way that it did, but I also feel much better coming out of this draft knowing that you got both a wide receiver and a running back. Yeah, you got the running back in the 7th, and, you got Jalen Royals in the 4th, but at the same time, I do think that the Chiefs got 2 players on offense that Patrick Mahomes can try to work with. But overall, they went defense, and I think that's a good thing. But I do want to hear from you guys down in the comments section below. What is your favorite draft pick from this class? I mean, I think that Noah Williams is going to be a fan favorite just because he's a ball hawk. He's someone that should fit in very nicely day one. But also Jalen Royals. Jalen Royals is the guy that I'm the most excited about because, we talked about him potentially being a fit for the Chiefs, and I would have taken him in the 2nd or 3rd round. And there were some mock drafts that I did in the pre-draft process where Jalen Royals was going, late 2nd round, early 3rd round, and the Chiefs stole him at pick 133 in the 4th round. And so I do think that the Chiefs did a fantastic job at positional value. There were guys that they traded up to go get, they definitely traded up to go get, Brashard Smith. They gave up their, later 7th round picks. Who cares about that? But if they got a guy that they're confident could be, a future guy, then why would I care? You're giving away 7th round draft picks. They kind of practically grow on trees. But I do want to talk more about draft grades and what the national consensus is on the Chiefs draft class, and we will do that right after this ad break. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and a new ESPN Bet sportsbook, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow them on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Huge thanks to the Hollywood Casino for sponsoring this channel all off-season long. But getting back into some of the national consensus, the draft grades, Chad Ryder, who was a, massive proponent of the Chiefs taking a left tackle in the 1st round, and, he was, I don't want to say critical of other teams, but you can kind of see by this list, there were some teams that graded out better than others, and he gave the Kansas City Chiefs an A-. That is his draft grade. And considering you're picking at 31-32, I feel like that's a really good grade. Now, I'm actually not sure if I would grade the Chiefs out that high, and that's no shame towards Brett Veach and the Chiefs, but I think that when we're talking about a draft grade, we kind of have to look at the players that are going to play relatively soon, and I don't know if there's a ton of guys on this list that can truly play day one. There's a couple guys, like I mentioned, but most of these guys like Josh Simmons and Jeffrey Bassa and, to a certain extent, it could be, Brashard Smith and even Jalen Royals, they're not going to make it a big impact, season 1. This is for 2026 and beyond. And so it's so difficult to truly grade a draft class just because, it could be so different depending on, which guys get opportunities to play this year and next year. But I would give the Chiefs an A. I think that's fair. Well, you know what? A B+ to an A-. And I'll give them a B+ to an A- because I think that when you look at the list, There's a couple guys that I'm pretty sure are going to be good right off the bat, like Noah Williams, the cornerback from Cal. I think he's going to be a stud. I think that Jalen Royals is going to be a stud when given the opportunity. I think that Omar Norman-Lott is at least a rotational piece in year one. And Josh Simmons has the potential to be a top 10 left tackle, next year if he ends up playing in 2026, because the thought process is he isn't going to play in 2025. He's basically going to redshirt his rookie season and potentially play either left or right tackle in 2026. So I would give the Chiefs a B minus to a B plus to an A minus. But I do want to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. How would you grade the Chiefs draft class? Do you think that I'm kind of spot on? Do you think that I, am underselling how good it actually is going to be? I think that an A minus is fair, but I also think that a B plus is fair, considering that, you could have taken a running back higher. You probably could have avoided taking Josh Simmons just with the risk. But I also kind of want to dive into these individual players in separate videos. So expect this week to see a video on Josh Simmons and Omar Norman-Lott and just the entire class, because we'll watch some film, we'll watch some tape, kind of give my thoughts on that, and also just talk about how they're going to fit in the Chiefs, timeline. So that's really all I have for this video. I would give the Chiefs draft grade a B plus to an A minus. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video, and as always, go Chiefs.